What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Kyle, we already got to go through my hot takes, and I'm so excited to hear what kind of fire you're going to be spitting with these predictions.
And as you mentioned, we are talking Kyle's bold predictions tonight. If you are enjoying what we're doing, make sure you mash that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Brian already spit his hot fire. One I was all on board with. One I vehemently disagree with, and he keeps sharing information on Twitter. I will go down with the ship. If this is the Titanic and that's how we're gonna do it, then here we go. And one that it makes sense, but there's obviously a lot of questions around potentially happening. So it was some good stuff. Obviously, we also did a show talking about the Leonard Fournette situation to Tampa and what it means for Jacksonville and all that stuff. So if you're getting ready for drafts this weekend, go check that out. But as Brian mentioned, we're talking my bold predictions. Some of this might sound, familiar. Some of this stuff is people I've been pounding the table for. And then one of them's just kind of like, we'll get there. But let's jump in. Jared Goff is going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback in 2020. Say what you will about Jared Goff as a player and some of the question marks we have about this team in general. But in terms of for fantasy purposes, I think a huge monster season is coming for Jared Goff. Not only, in terms of like what we saw last year and touchdown rates and, where he should have been. Like last year, if he just scores the touchdowns along with everything else that he already did, we're talking about a top 7 guy already. I love Robert Woods this year. I think he's poised for a monster bounce back. I think Cooper Kupp's very interesting. I know they lost Brandon Cooks, and I'm a big fan of him this year, but they have Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee. I think both these guys could be, top 12 or 14 fantasy options at tight end. We'll see what the running back position brings, but I feel like as much as excited as we get about Cam Akers, like if we think Cam Akers is going to be as productive as some people are touting him to be, this offense should be humming. I have questions about what we're going to get from the running back, and I could see a lot more opportunities falling on Goff's shoulders, whether that's, whether they get in close and a little more throwing from the goal line, a few more QB sneaks, a few more other things than just hand off to Todd Gurley and let him score. Obviously Goff threw for 4,500 yards. Or more, there's basically been 62 quarterbacks that have thrown for 4,500 yards or more. Goff last season, his 22 touchdowns were the third fewest of anyone on that group. His touchdown rate is significantly higher under McVay. It should have been, 35 touchdowns. So like I'm all aboard. I love this offense. And I think Jared Goff is going to be one of the biggest benefactors of everything they do this year.
Yeah, I love your call with Goff here. Just looking at the numbers, like you're saying, the only metric where he struggled was touchdowns. He put up a tremendous amount of yards. He was just over 4,600, right underneath 4,700. That's consistent with what his previous 2 seasons were, and it was just the touchdowns that bit him hard last year. And I think that had a lot to do with the lack of running production that they saw, with the uncertainty of what was going on with Todd Gurley. Now, like you said, it's going to be a rotating backfield, whether it's Cam Akers, the Darrell Henderson show, Mr. Brown back there. We don't know who's going to be taking the reins, but whoever it is, I think the health of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, let's not forget about Van Jefferson, who is making waves in training camp and has already surpassed Josh Reynolds, which I'm surprised people didn't already assume that right after the draft to begin with.
We've seen Josh Reynolds be productive, so like that was a little shocking to me in terms of him already surpassing. We'll see how that actually plays out, but like there's been instances even when you know, whether it was Cup or whether it was Cooks, whoever happened to be down, where Josh Reynolds was put into the starting role and was able to be fantasy reliable. So I kind of expected him to be in that conversation, but maybe Van Jefferson fits better in the mold of what they want that third receiver to do. Guy who can go down the field, stretch it a little bit more, let Cup and Woods operate underneath, especially with those two tight ends. Could be really interesting, but yeah, I'm all aboard on this offense. And the best part about Goff is he's coming off the board as QB 18 in the 12th round. Like even if he doesn't hit the bold call that I'm predicting, he should be in that top 10 to 12, and you're getting him basically at the end of your draft. So that's free money. That's value. That's I don't know.
I mean, these two players, talent-wise, aren't anywhere near comparable, and they also play two different positions. But we talk about it every year with Julio Jones, where his touchdown numbers are always less than what we see at the other elite wide receivers. But he's consistently in the top 3 at receivers of receptions, yards, and those are almost predictable statistics going into years. And Goff is very similar when you're looking at his yards, his pass attempts, and such like that. And then he has this outlier season with a big reduction in touchdown percentage. He's more likely to regress positively in that category, which means that we should see a return to what this offense was just 2 years ago. This extremely high-powered, super potent offense humming down the field week in and week out.
Yeah, and quarterback especially, like it really feels like their touchdown rate, especially the ones that start majority of the games that are actually fantasy reliant, they're usually in that 5 to 7 round range. So 5 to 7% touchdown rate. So if they're way above it, they're probably going to bounce back. Looking at you, Lamar Jackson. If they're way below it, they're usually going to come back up to it. And looking at Jared Goff, who I expect to be closer to 5%, maybe even closer to 6% in that 5.5 range, and I think it's very viable. So yeah, I'm all aboard the Jared Goff hype train. Wait in your leagues this weekend. Take him with one of your later picks and love life. This one's going to be a little hard for some people to hear. I'm going to be a little negative, which I don't love to be, but Kenyon Drake won't be a top 20 fantasy running back this year. Currently, per Fantasy Football Calculator, he's coming off the board in the early second round as the 14th overall selection. I know what we saw from Kenyon Drake. Obviously, last year, like in the big Thursday night game against the Niners, he had 4 touchdowns. Or no, that was against Cleveland, but he had that monster game against the Niners on Thursday night. Definitely made a splash coming to Arizona, but this really feel like, I know we want to vault him. I know we want him to be like, oh, see if he just got the touches, but I feel like we did the same thing with Lamar Miller, who went from Miami to a really good offense, and everyone wanted to vault him. And then when he got that volume, it didn't happen. And they brought in Nuke Hopkins. Like we've been talking about this passing game all offseason with Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk and Isabella and all the different options they could potentially use. Oh, and then Chase Edmonds is still there, and I think he'll be a factor. I think it's just going to make things messy in the backfield. I don't know if there's going to be enough volume to go around. And I'm ready for him to underwhelm in a big way this season.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll go as far as like not finishing in the top 20, but I definitely do see him not kind of producing up to where his current ADP is, just with what you said. Like Chase Edmonds is there, and he performed admirably when he was the starter for a few weeks. They drafted Eno Benjamin, who he could be that short yardage back where on the rare occasions that they decide to run the ball near the goal line, he could be the preferred option there as the bigger dude. Yeah. And, we've seen Kenyon Drake. He's never really been able to put together that full season of no injury issues. Like he's seemingly year in and year out banged up, whether he misses games or not. He's constantly dealing with nagging issues. This offense is just going to be so pass heavy. I could see a 65% passing offense, only 35% running plays.
Mhm.
And the fact that, they got this brand new weapon in Nuke Hopkins. It I understand we're both predicting this offense to just blow the roof off of everybody, but I don't see them going to the running game that would make Kenyon Drake a sustainable option at his current ADP and have him finish near the top 10 at the position.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not touching him at his current ADP, but like I don't know. This is a guy that during his last 2 seasons in Miami, 130, 120 touches. I know we saw 120, 123 in 8 games with Arizona, but like we've seen a lot of times where a player transitions, has a big, impressive chunk, and then the next season kind of does the same thing, but over a full season. So instead of, I could see 140-ish carries, but like over 16 games, and Chase Edmonds is involved, and they're passing a lot, and maybe he's involved, but I don't think he's getting 70, 80, 90 targets, especially with the options they have in that passing game. I don't see the volume, I don't see the work, and I don't see him being productive enough with all of that work. But I've been wrong in the past. I'm sure I'll be wrong again, but I'm not touching Kenyon Drake. And if you're taking him in the first, round or two, like, good luck to you. Good luck.
God help you.
All right. This has been coming for a long time. J.K. Dobbins will be a top 10 fantasy running back in 2020. Book it. Done deal. Sign it up. I was feeling real aggressive when we were talking back in May, in June. And the camp reports are following in the drum beat coming out of Baltimore is, J.K. Dobbins looks really good. J.K. Dobbins is going to be involved. J.K. Dobbins is going to be a big part of this offense. J.K. Dobbins is going to be Mark Ingram, and Mark Ingram is going to be Gus Edwards. That is what's happening. By the end of the season, it will be 60%, 70% J.K., 30 to 40% Mark Ingram in a high potent offense that's going to want to run the ball. J.K. Dobbins is going to be a fantasy monster and a guy that we're considering as a, top 5 to 7 pick going into 2021 drafts.
Yeah, I can admit that I was on the wrong end of this prediction early on, as I was very against this idea that he was just going to supplant Mark Ingram as the go-to guy. But all reports are indicating that Baltimore absolutely loves this kid, his athleticism, what he offers in the passing game. They're just extremely excited about his potential in this offense. And like you said, it's only a matter of games before he's seeing the majority of the carries near that 60, 65% range. And Mark Ingram is fading away more into that Gus the Bus range where he's seeing the pickup. He's picking up the rebounds that J.K. Dobbins is leaving. And, I've become fully immersed in the J.K. Dobbins hype, as I have him in 3 leagues now, to which I wouldn't have had him in any if hadn't I jumped on the wagon. Exactly. And I'm extremely excited now. So yeah, I could definitely see this one happening.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday, John Harbaugh rather, said he's definitely going to have a significant role. Like, this is yesterday. He was impressing in the online OTAs. He stepped on the field, continues to impress, as you mentioned, is super versatile in the passing game, gonna be a factor in the running game. This is an explosive player where even if I think an Alvin Kamara light type season is absolutely in the cards. We saw him have an amazing season with Ingram. Like, I think that's very much in the cards. I think, to start maybe the first few games, it's more Ingram than Dobbins, but Dobbins is just going to be so good where they're not going to have a choice. They're going to have to play the better player. And I love Mark Ingram. He's been a superstar his whole career. But the changing the guard is happening this year, and J.K. Dobbins is going to be an absolute freak.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Dobbins offers that none of the other backs on that Ravens team does is that breakaway ability. For everything that Mark Ingram does, he's not the guy that's going to break off the 60, 70-yard touchdown Whereas J.K. Dobbins, once he gets through that first wave of defenders and it's him versus a safety, he's either going to run past them or he's just going to stiff arm his way into the end zone. So, I like you said, each day I'm becoming more and more in love with Dobbins at his current ADP price and the potential of him going into 2020.
Yeah, and I mean, anytime you can get a running back in an up tempo offense is going to have lots of scoring opportunities. That I love what Marquise Brown could be. I like Mark Andrews. I think Miles Boykin could be interesting, but I was talking about Kenyon Drake, who is also in a great offense. But when you look at the options with Hopkins and Kirk and Fitzgerald and a couple of the running backs, there's a lot more potential mouths to feed where, Ingram is there. And we all think Miles Boykin or Marquise Brown could take another step. And obviously Mark Andrews is going to be involved in this offense. But there's a lot less going on. And, Lamar is an absolute stud. And this offense is going to click, and they're going to score a lot of points. And J.K. Dobbins is going to be an absolute freak this year and be a big part of why people win fantasy championships.
So what we're really saying here is that J.K. Dobbins is going to finish 10th, and Zach Moss is going to finish 9th in total fantasy running back.
That is absolutely not what we're saying. That is absolutely no. We're saying J.K. Dobbins will finish 10th. And Devin Singletary will finish 15th, and Zach Moss will finish as an afterthought. But if you want to hear more on Brian and I's discussion of the Bills backfield, make sure you go check out Brian's Bold Calls. If you want some info on what we think of Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, and we'll see how that all shakes out. Bruce Arians says a lot of things. He doesn't always follow through on that. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm curious to see. I think we're going to end up looking smart in the end, but, go check out our thoughts over there and see how we feel. All right, Brian, this was good. This was fun. Obviously, we will be back next week to get you set for a whole week of football. I didn't think it was coming, and now it's here. We got football this time next week, starting Thursday. It's truly wild times, but let's hit the ground running. Let's have some fun, and let's win some fantasy games. Good luck with your drafts. If you have questions, if you're heading into drafts, there's our Twitter handles. Feel free to shoot us a message. Hit us up in the DMs. Hey, I'm looking at this player, this player. Hey, I'm thinking about, what do you think about? Let us know. We're always down to give you our opinion. Now, if you disagree, go with what your gut says. But we're going to give you our thoughts and our feelings and all that good stuff. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.